sit down with a pen and paper and then get to know somebody that just passed away. You know, like really get to know him better. I got to know him better while I wrote that speech than I think I ever did while he was alive.
There's such a lesson there too, and it's a shame, right?
Yeah,
That you didn't manage to do that exercise when you had a chance to tell him about what you realized.
exactly.
And so
Exactly.
I wonder how we cultivate that in our own kids. Like I don't want that to happen. I don't want my boy to finally realize who I am
Yeah.
when he's doing that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wonder how to cultivate it.
I think it's, to answer the question that is just kind of a general question, obviously, but I do think that it just comes back to balance. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to work hard to do, especially with my oldest, because you deal with your kids at the level that they're at. I can't deal with my 8-year-old the same exact way that I deal with my 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But I am trying to communicate with him certain things about now I'm trying to communicate to him why I ride him so hard. Like now I'm trying to tell him like, hey, like I'll give you a perfect example. He's a good basketball player for his age,
Mm-hmm.
and I just find sports to be probably the purest form of mastery that there is. Right? You go out there, you
Absolutely.
do something, you practice over and over again, you get better at it.
It's so
And
well
so now,
defined. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly right. There's statistics. It's everyone's watching the same game. It's objective,
Yep.
and so lately this year, all of a sudden, like I've been working with he's left-handed, and so we've been working on right-hand layups since he was probably a third grader, and now he's a fifth grader, and then all of a sudden this year, this kid, I want to say he's 7 for 7 right-handed layups in games. Never said shoot it with your right hand. He just all of a sudden, boom, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
now I'm able to say to him like, do you remember how hard you thought that was?
Yeah.
Like, do you remember how the ball would go off your right hand and it would go this way and that way and it's like I'm trying to like show him like this is hard work paying off. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. The
Yeah.
beginning sucks. It's terrible and it's annoying and it's frustrating, but the end results, maybe it's 2 years later, but once you get it, now you got it. Now you can do this.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, hope and then hoping that he understands it and hoping, like you said, that it doesn't take something tragic for him to really. I'm trying to explain it to him and hopefully, come to an understanding of why I do what I do and not just bark at him and say, do this, do that, do this, do that, like, because,
Yeah. And I think that creating that touchstone where you know how you feel right now. You feel this way. You feel so good right now because of all that hard work that we did together. And you created that touchstone there. And maybe it's inaccessible to him. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he does. Maybe he gets it. Maybe he doesn't.
yeah,
But your reflex to create that touchstone, he'll have dozens of those in his life.
yeah,
And that's the answer to the question. I think
yeah,
is you got to create those touchstone moments. You have to connect the value back to the activity
yeah,
and say, this is why we went to the hoop every night after school and did
yeah,
50 layups. And it sucked, but that's why we did it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I will say this, that I gotta refigure it out with my younger one because my older one took to basketball. He took to
Yeah.
it. He just took to it,
Yeah.
and he's just natural, and he's obsessive. When he's sick, he's homesick from school. He's watching YouTube videos of Kobe Bryant. Like that's the kind of kid that he is.
Right.
He knows all this. He could tell you about Larry Bird and guys that he never saw play live. He could tell you. My younger one, is much more the child of the era, right? He's very
Hmm.
much like, Dad, can I watch YouTube? He's
Yeah.
very much
Mine too.
like He'd rather be playing video games than doing anything else. And so
Absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out like how do I get him to now adopt hard work and not just what you're good at, because he's a reader, he's a good reader, he's naturally he's a smart kid. He writes
Yeah.
better than his older brother. He reads really fast. But it's I you realize everything that works for this kid might not work for the other kid. And now I got
Yeah.
to redo the book and figure out how to do it with this guy.
Yeah. And one of the things that the kids are going for is independence. And
Yeah.
they want to be independent from you and they want to be independent from their siblings. And, part of what's happening there is he doesn't want to be the same as his brother.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
of course it's going to be a challenge. My son is the exact same way as your son.
Yeah.
And same, really good reader, really good in school, really, really good at math. I mean, he invented a way to do division. I still don't know how he does it. And they haven't taught
Oh,
division at school yet, and he knows how to do it.
I love
And
that. I love that.
he can't even explain to me how he does it. He just kind of knows
Yeah.
that 80 divided by 20 is 4.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. But, and I can't get him into sports
Yeah.
to save my life. And I really want him to be into sports because it was
Yeah.
such a defining thing for me
Yeah.
when I finally figured it out. And I wish I figured it out earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. How tall are you? You look tall.
I am really tall. I'm 6'5". My wife
Okay.
is 5'10".
Oh.
My wife was, my kids ought to be unbelievable athletes.
Yes.
My wife was a professional beach volleyball player for a little while. She was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm tall.
And
So,
and you're tall. My wife is volley. She played Division One volleyball for Weber State.
no kidding. Oh my gosh, we got to get them together. They'll
Yeah,
be
man.
good friends. I
Hey,
can tell
you
you
know what
right
I
now,
know,
they'll be good
man?
friends.
Some of the most beautiful women in the world play volleyball.
Oh my gosh. I remember when I got into volleyball, I I got some criticism. I was kind of late in life. I got some criticism from her. What are you like? You playing volleyball? Isn't that? I mean,
Yeah.
what are you gay? Is that a girl sport? And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, what should I play? Should I go play football and roll around in the
Yeah.
grass with other dudes? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's not gay.
Yeah.
Or I can go to the beach and hang out with a bunch of chicks in bikinis.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I mean, you
Yeah.
you have your values, I have mine.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know that's just not a criticism that's likely to land.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, that you and I feel your pain because that you have the genetic sauce to make something, like it's funny looking at like well, there's kids like, I'm on the board for the youth basketball in my community.
Yeah.
And we have kids that, I like there's this one kid that I was like, I don't know if he should make the team. I'm not sure if he's got the skills. And then a dad looks at me and he goes, his dad's 6'10". And I go, oh, okay, cool. He's on the
He's
team.
in. Yeah. Yeah.
We got to nurture this. We got to water this flower. He may not be
Yeah.
good now, but his dad's 6'10". So
Yeah.
let's
And that's about
we got this
50% of basketball
potential
players.
here. Yes, and you know what? And anyone who can play basketball can play volleyball.
Yeah, actually, I think that anyone who can't play basketball ends up playing
Yeah,
volleyball.
yeah, touche.
That was definitely the case for me. My brother
Yeah,
and I used to play one every once in a while. We'd, I don't know, get a wild hair and we'd play one on one with each other with the hoop in the neighborhood or something. And
yeah.
we would play to 10. And the games would last 45 minutes. And we had to give each other a point if we hit the rim. Otherwise, the game would never end. We'd still be out there 30 years later. Come on, man, just get it in there.
And you guys are both tall.
We're so bad. We were both tall. I'm 6'5". My
Yeah,
my younger brother is 6'2", and we
yeah,
couldn't sink a basket. My kid is better than me at basketball.
yeah.
It's nuts.
Does your daughter play any sports?
So she's only 3, and she's gonna be
Oh,
nuts in
yeah, I'm
sports.
sorry.
We're
Forgot.
about to put her in soccer, and
Yeah.
she already like loves balls, and she's gonna take to it like a fish in water. She's gonna.
Yeah.
I think she's gonna be taller than our boy. She's already bigger than he was at her age,
Yeah.
and she's gonna be so tall, and it's crazy. She's already kind of she's already got shyness about her body. She talks about how much bigger she is than the other girls and stuff like that. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh no,
Yep.
please, no, it's starting. She's 3 years old, and she's already complaining about her body and how big she is. I was like, this is such a
Yeah.
good thing. I need to get her in sports so that she doesn't like it feels like an asset instead of a liability.
100%. I think 100%. I have a friend of mine who's really more family than friends. So his daughter, I consider her a niece,
Yeah,
and she's 16 and she's gorgeous, right?
yeah.
And I'm just so thankful that she's a three-sport girl.
Oh
She
my
plays
gosh, yes.
softball, soccer, and basketball,
Yeah.
varsity. And I'm just like, if this girl left up to her own devices, who knows? You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
what's waiting for her. But
Yeah.
she's busy. She's in the gym all the time, and she, like you said, she's her body is an asset. She takes care of it. She eat, like she understands. Like I just think that athletics are so good, especially for young women. In a world where there's just so many weirdos and they're everywhere. They're online, and I just feel like a present father and some place to be is just essential for every kid. Some kids are gonna go to the art, some kids are gonna dance,
Yeah.
right? But something that keeps them busy and active,
It's such an
because
easy way to do that if you can get
yeah,
them to be passionate about it.
yeah, 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 and then, once again, like I can't stress enough. If you got to, like, I want to just take every kid in the world and be like, is your parents over 6 feet tall? All right, get in the gym.
Well, but part of the problem is that back when I was in high school, you played high school sports and you played all the sports.
Yep.
And you didn't have to specialize. There wasn't club teams. It was, I mean, nobody, like maybe you would be really, really, really good and you'd end up going to college and that would sort of naturally happen. You didn't actually have to design it out.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you almost have to, like, if you want to be good at baseball, you have to
Yeah.
decide when you're 10 years old that you're going to
Yep.
dedicate your life to being good at baseball. And then you go to all the camps and you do the club sports and you're traveling around and you're spending tons of money. And then maybe you'll go to a D3 school and have a shot.
Yeah.
And you have to turn pro when you're 10.
Yeah. It's scary. It is, and I don't, one of my challenges is trying to get my oldest son, Lincoln, to really get serious about a second sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I really need it to be his idea,
Yeah.
because he's very much like me in terms of what he wants to do, he will excel at, he's passionate about, he'll work hard. What you make him do, he will do the least amount, and
Exactly.
like so I need it to be his idea. I need him to
Yeah.
adopt a second sport because I think it's good for the body, it's good for the mind. But to talk to what you just said, there's so much pressure. I mean, he plays on an elite AAU team in the fall. He's going to play school ball, which I'll coach in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And I was talking to his coach, and he was like, yeah, we're going to run spring ball and we're going to do this. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I want, but there's pressure because all of his friends are going to be there.
Right.
But then I'm like, that's 3 seasons of basketball in a row.
Yeah.
Like I don't love that. I don't
Yeah.
love that. But then, like you said, then my mind goes, all right, but what about the kids that do the 3 seasons, right? How much better are they going to be in 2 years? Are they going to be ahead of him in 2 years because they've specialized earlier? And it's like it's just
Or are they going to
I don't know
burn
what the
out
right answer is.
because I just
Exactly.
want to not have to play basketball for 3 months? It turns
Yeah.
out.
Exactly. And I don't
Or
know what the
or are they not going to be as good because he takes a season to play volleyball and now he has a different kind of conditioning and he can jump higher and he's focused
yeah.
on different things. It's
Yeah, yeah,
impossible to know.
yeah, yeah. I definitely. He plays a little bit of tennis. He's really good at tennis. but we don't really have a lot of like competitive tennis around here. And so I need it to be competitive, because I know once he gets in front of a group of people, his competitive nature will take over. He's not
Yeah.
going to want to be bad at something where people are watching.
Yeah.
But if it's just him and a coach, going back and forth, it's like no, he needs a game. He needs people to be standing there. He
Someone
needs me
has
to
to
have the
kick you.
camera out.
Yep. Yeah.
He's
I
part of
get it.
this generation.
I get it. One of the things that impresses me so much about you is how open you are about like just your messy life. I mean, you're
Yeah,
just like putting it all out there, and I mean, judge me if you want, and you
yeah,
just there is that is so courageous, and especially when it comes to parenting, and the journey that you have out there with your kids. What motivates you to do that? What I mean, there's risk there, but there's why do you do that? Why is that important to you?
I think my wife, number one, she definitely got into social media. Like we kind of did it at the same time, actually, because I started with the podcast and she started with her own kind of like building her own business online through social media, and it was like I remember she was like, oh, I gotta film this, I gotta film our lives, people want to see what we do. And at first, like, everybody, it was annoying, right? At first I was like, oh man, I don't want to do that, that's stupid, right? and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she's like, no, film this, do this dance with me, you know what I mean? And I'm like, God, this is dumb, I don't want to do this. And then as I saw, like, oh, like this is becoming not just lucrative, but your her reach started to dwarf mine. Right,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
being more reserved on social media and just being like, I'm gonna stick to my political satire content and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And then she was like, having fun, and I was realizing that she was reaching a broader audience. So that was number one, that I kind of opened up to that. And um and then, to be honest with you, so my first podcast was called the Broken Glass Podcast, and I
Mm.
did political satire.
Okay.
And it was kind of like the Daily Show for Portland. Okay, and over dealing in the political space, especially now, you get very defensive,
Yeah,
right? Like when
yeah.
someone would recognize me, I would immediately get nervous. Like,
Right. Are
who
you
did I
an
make fun
ally or
of?
are you an enemy?
Exactly, right? And
Yeah.
so when we decided to do this podcast, I took the extraordinary step of deleting everything that I'd previously done offline, and it was for a
Wow.
specific reason,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to. I was like, you know what? I don't want to alienate anybody. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? I don't want anyone to prejudge me based off of what they believe I believe, right?
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
like, let me start fresh and build a different brand that's just going to be fun and more accessible. Which 5 years ago, if you would have told me that I'd be this person, I'd say there's no way. I was way too serious. I was
Yeah.
way too
And there was
engaged.
serious stuff going on in the world, and you need to be
Yeah,
serious about it. And gosh,
yeah.
like what if X, Y, and Z? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, this was me. This was, and I found no value in like family entertainment and blah blah blah. And
Right.
then I think as my kids got older, which happens, right? You learn.
Sometime. Yeah.
I go, what do I want them to see? What do I want? I started coaching, right? And I was like, yo, what do I want the parents now now other parents are entrusting me, hey, take my kid for an hour, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so do I want to be having political battles with parents on the team, and do I want to alienate half the team? Do I want to make these people feel uncomfortable? Do I want to make them feel like I don't like them, or so I started thinking about all these things, and I realized that, especially because I come from a hip hop background, and I kind of realized, like, just like what this podcast is doing right now, I was like, man, I hear guys talk about how tough they are. I hear guys talk about their street credibility. I hear guys talk about how cool they are, how many women they have. As a young man, I was inundated with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get older and you watch the documentaries and you go, oh, that guy was married with kids. Like that guy, like he didn't tell me that part of his life. And it
Yeah.
was like he
He's
didn't
playing a part.
share. Yeah, you realize like, oh, and then I realized like, oh, okay, like, oh, these guys aren't really, a lot of these guys are just normal guys, and then they perform songs, and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and so once I kind of, all those things kind of came together, and I realized like there's really not a lot of dudes out here, especially like masculine. I'm a big guy, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
not like a small guy, and
Yeah.
so I feel like there wasn't a lot of guys kind of just being like a public father. And so when I took that on, I started getting a lot of friends and a lot of people that knew me as this like rapper guy. They were all like, "Man, it's so cool to like see you with your kids," and it's like, oh, you're like the neighborhood dad now, and it was like, and once I started seeing how people reacted to that, and seeing how people, young men going like, oh yeah, I love seeing you with the kids, and guys that like, these are big scary guys, like these are tough guys, and they'd go like, they see me, and I realized like, oh, now their walls came down, because I'm not trying to be tough. So now they're like, well, I don't got to be tough with this guy. He's a dad and a husband,
Yeah.
And then once I kind of figured out the value of that, I started to go, okay, like, yeah, this is, and I started to like get comfortable in this space of like, obviously I don't want to embarrass my kids, right? I don't want them to like resent me in the future, but I do think there's a lot of value in kind of just being open about the struggles that I feel like are relatable,
Yeah.
right? If I feel like you can relate to something, or your wife can relate to something my wife says, or vice versa, it's like I just feel that there's a lot of value in sharing those things, and you have dinner with your friends. There's eight of you guys, a bunch of couples sitting around, and then you guys get to talking about the kids, and it's like sometimes those are the most fun conversations, and
Right.
you learn stuff. You
Right.
go, oh, you do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you got your kid to like reading. That's how you got your kid to like basketball, So it's like I feel like let's take that and put that out into the world for people to
Yeah. I mean, the
enjoy.
kids
And
are talking all the time at school. They're comparing notes
yes,
about how to manipulate their parents and screw with us. Like, and we're not teaming
yes,
up against them.
yes, yes, 100%.
There's a particular strength in vulnerability,
Yeah,
and that's something that I think that men are just beginning to learn, or they are being forced to learn.
yeah,
And I'm working on this metaphor of it's like we have a castle, and all along we've been taught that the strength of the castle is how thick the walls are and how tall the walls are, and look at how impenetrable my castle is, and you could have 1,000 archers and trebuchets and all of that stuff attacking my castle, and it's so strong that it will withstand anything. But that's actually not the measure of the strength of the castle. The measure of the strength of the castle is how big the enclosure is. It's how large the area that is protected is. And so you have to have if you have this really, really strong castle, but it only houses a single building, then that's actually not as good as if you have a weaker castle that encompasses the entire region. And in order to do that, you have to you have to be more vulnerable. Your walls have to be smaller. You have to have gates that open up to the world, and you have to be willing to allow some risk there in order to have a bigger enclosure and to have the
yeah. You gotta
village in
let
there.
people in. You gotta let people in.
Yeah,
That's
you got to let people in, and it's
you gotta let
tough.
people in and learn from those people and buy things from those people and
Yeah,
barter with those people, and they bring in information and tools and money. And but if yeah, you're 100% right. I feel like if you're closed off, it's a not to ruffle feathers, but it's a lot like a cult, right? If you notice, like I watch a lot of cult documentaries. I love me a
oh, do
good
you?
cult
Yeah, yeah,
movie.
I love that
Doc,
too.
you know what I mean? And it's because you go, oh, that's how that is, right? And a lot of that thinking is you 100%. It's very enclosed.
Yeah,
They don't want outsiders in. They don't want to let their people out.
yeah,
Because they want to be able to control everything in there. And I agree with you. I think that if you're the true measure of strength is it's just like the true measure of how well you raise your children is not whether or not they stay with you the rest of your life. It's how well do they do once they leave.
yeah,
Like once they get out into the world, did you give them enough tools to be productive, to be successful, or do they constantly need protection?
Yeah.
Or can they go out and be the protectors? Can they go
Yeah.
out and build their own castle?
Yeah. Have you
Like
modeled
that's
that well? That's exactly right.
yeah,
That's exactly right.
yeah. I
So,
like a
so
metaphor.
yeah, yeah. I'm still working on it. Well,
I
I'll get
like
it
that.
tighter.
That's good. I might take
Yeah.
that.
So, what values do you hope that your kids carry from how you parent them?
Um, hard work, compassion, definitely. I want them to be empathetic people. I want them to understand that they've had a pretty privileged upbringing and they've got access to things that not everybody does, and they need to
Appreciate
understand
that.
that.
Yeah.
They need to know that it's through no fault of nothing they did.
Right.
It's not because they're so awesome that
Yeah.
they get to have the sneakers that they want. Like it's because some kids, you get around some kids, they think that they have money because they're so cool, and it's like that's not why you got it, right? I need them to understand that. I need them to understand. I think I also learned from my mom. I don't want this to sound because I don't know how to say this without sounding harsh, right?
Hmm.
But I don't do like the unconditional love thing. You know what I mean? Even though technically it's there, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I love you guys unconditionally, of course. But you got to do stuff. You know what I mean? Like and there are things that you can do that will affect the way I look at you. You need to understand that. You don't have a blank pass to go behave any way you want. You can't talk to me any kind of way you want. You can't talk to adults any way you want. You can't behave any way you want at school. There's a hard red lines of behavior that you need to, you can't be fighting in school. You can't be, you know, so I do think like, me and my wife are probably a little bit different on that as far as like, my wife will love my boys like,
Right.
no matter
Yeah.
what, oh, he's a
Yeah.
serial killer. Yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
We're on his
you
side.
don't care.
I think about one of the big lessons for me about parenting has that I've managed to figure out in the short time that it's been an issue is it's all about managing tensions.
Yeah.
There is a tension, and this is one of those tensions. There's a tensions between strength and vulnerability. There's a
Yeah.
tension in this case. There's a tension between unconditional love and letting your kids walk all over you,
Yeah.
and you can't be at either of those extremes. And
Yep.
and maybe we just don't have the right term to talk about.
Yeah.
There is a love that's unconditional. There
Yeah.
is there is my son was going to bed last night and he got really upset. And he got really upset because he was worried that he wouldn't be able to live with us until he was 50. Because my
Yep.
wife had told him that he was going to be out on his own someday.
Yes, this is a
And
conversation.
I told him, I said, listen, you can live with me until you're 50. As long as you want to live with me, I want you here. He goes, but there might come a time where you want to move away to be
Yeah.
on your own. He goes, no, I'll never want that. I love you guys. And I said, I love you too more than anything. And if you want to live with me until you're 50, you can live with me until you're 50. Of
Yeah.
course, he's not going to want to live with me until he's 50.
Of
And,
course.
and if he's 26 years old and still living at home, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still want him to feel like you have a home here, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'm trying, my brain was just running at 9,000 miles an hour because, on the one hand, I want to give him the comfort he's seeking. But on the other hand, I don't want him, when he's 26 years old, I don't want him living at home.
Yeah.
And what I realized is this isn't the time to have that discussion. The time to have that discussion is when he's 16. The time to
Yeah.
have the discussion to have right now is he needs to understand that no matter what, he has a place in the home.
Yeah.
But I really struggled with that. And I didn't know how to deal with it.
I get it, man. My wife just had a conversation with Lincoln because he says to her, he goes, Mom, he was like, what am I gonna do when I'm in college? Because he's got a signature afro, like that's his everyone, you can see the kid coming from a mile away, right?
I think that's totally
And
cool.
yeah, like that's just he could trademark that thing. And
Yeah.
he goes, Mom, what am I gonna do when I go to college? And she goes, What do you mean? And then he goes, Well, are you gonna come with me? Because like, who's gonna do my hair? Because she gets in there every day and she's like massaging the curls and she's working it out, and he's got very
Wow.
curly hair, and so it's his own thing. Our kids have very different hair from each other, and she's just like, and just like she said the same thing. She goes, I'll come with you. And I'm in the background like, shit.
Exactly. Yeah,
Shit.
exactly.
but
Like,
I but I understand, it's like you're right. We don't need to have this discussion right now.
yeah.
You and I both know that a little thing called girls is just they're right around the corner. And once he figures out girls and all that, then
All
mom's,
of it's out the window,
it's
man.
yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Mom, you cannot come to college with me. I will be, you know what I mean? He's gonna be
Right.
doing,
You still want your
he's
mom doing your hair? You will not
exactly.
want that.
He's not gonna want that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely understand that space.
Yeah, so tell me, what advice would you give to dads who feel like maybe they're failing or they're falling short of the ideal they have in their heads or what society expects from them?
Yeah. I would say that's what we're all doing.
Okay.
I feel like that's, the success is, success is my son learning how to do a right-handed layup, right? It's trying and failing over and over and over again until one day that thing clicks. One day you can just do it. So,
Yeah.
and then it's, like you learn how to have different conversations different ways. You try it, it fails miserably, you try it again. That's you just can't quit. You literally can't stop being a dad.
No.
Like you,
Yeah.
you can't stop, right? So it's like if you can't stop, if life's not going to stop it, then you just got to keep trying. I had a conversation with my oldest one again recently, and my Shannon told me, she said, it's time for you to like have a conversation about sex with your son. Like you gotta like we gotta get there before the school gets there, right? You gotta kind of
Wow.
like lay the groundwork. And I was like, you're right. I'm dreading it because my kid looks at me. Lincoln, the older one, he looks at me, and he looks like right into my soul when he looks into my
Yeah.
eyes, right? And so
Yeah.
there's certain things like, and I will tell you this. So this was my idea. I said, I told my wife, I said, take Rocky out, take him out, have some dinner or something. And I sat down with Lincoln and we played chess. And we started playing chess, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna do this every once in a while. We're gonna play chess. We're gonna have a conversation about some uncomfortable stuff. And the whole time I'm talking, I mean, I'm like, what are you saying? Like, you sound so stupid right now. And
Right.
because everything I said, he just looked up at me like, what? And he was just like giving me these funny, and he's smiling and he's laughing. And then so I'm smiling and I'm laughing because he's just making me laugh.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, afterwards, my wife goes, how did that go? And I go, I honestly have no idea. Right? I honestly have no idea if it was effective or what, but I had a good time, and I asked him. I said, "You want to do this again sometime?" He goes, "Absolutely not." Like he was like, "Don't ever." And I was like, "All right, I don't know how that went exactly, but
Yeah.
I tried." And it's like that's fatherhood. You just got to try, and you just got to try to be an example. And the other thing that I would say is, especially if you're fortunate enough to live with the mother of your children, and if you're married especially, the one thing I try to stress with guys is, like, you have to show your son how to love their mother and show
Yeah.
them
And,
what
and that's a
love and
better life
respect.
for you too, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, you have to show them what it looks like, because I do feel like so much of us, we talked about the career dads and these dads and that dads, and so a lot of my friends grew up in single parent homes, and so, but you know what? Every single friend that I have that grew up in a single parent home that I'm still friends with
Mm-hmm.
is currently married and living with their children. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
every single one of us. And so I feel like my generation has done a really good job of kind of breaking generational curses, but also, so now we're kind of doing this for the first time of like showing these kids like this is the only way to treat a woman. You can't. I don't know. I just think that's a really important thing
It is so important. Yeah.
I remember being so uncomfortable whenever a man would show my mom affection, because it wasn't my dad, and
Yeah.
so it was just like ugh, it was just gross, it was just
Right.
not something I was okay with, and took a very long time for me to like accept any man that she liked, and
Yeah.
and so it's like I just feel like and then they all treat her different. So it's like you just, I think that's an advice that I would give is just show love their mother as best as you can, and that will, I think, bring a certain amount of harmony to your household, that will be just invaluable.
Yeah. I that's a really, really such a good sentiment. And there's something that came to mind when you were talking about the first thing is that excellence is failure the
Yeah,
vast majority of the time.
yeah,
If you were perfect at something, or if you
yeah,
just, if you think you did it great, you probably didn't in the whole scheme of things. You were probably just
yeah,
measuring yourself against the very first time you did something. If you were excellent at it, if you thought you were excellent at it, you're not.
yeah,
And so excellence is about going out there and failing and failing and failing and failing and failing. And then you look around and all of a sudden you failed a little bit less
yeah,
than the guy next to you or than you
yeah,
used to.
yeah,
And so, if you're sitting there feeling like you're failing as a father, then you're on the road to excellence.
thank
If
you.
you're sitting there feeling like you hung the frickin' moon, I got news for you. Life is coming and it's going to show you how wrong you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for, you know what? I like that. I think once you said that, I couldn't have put it better myself. Like 100%. If you think you're failing, I think that's the key. I wish, I don't think I even heard that until I was like out of school. I don't think I
Yeah.
even heard that until I was like late 20s, early 30s of like, no, failure is like all these, you watch Mark Cuban, you watch billionaires talk, and they're always like, oh, yeah, no, failure. Like it's failure. They're like, failure is the greatest thing ever. And
Yeah.
when I'm just like, what? No one ever taught me that. No one ever
Right.
taught me like, no, failure is how you succeed. You cannot, no one does it right the first time, ever.
Right.
So yeah, I
Right.
think that's the most important lesson that we learn as men, and then to impart that, just like, dude, don't be afraid of failure, because you'll never do anything
You'll never
worthwhile
do
if you're
anything.
afraid.
You will create a sandbox around yourself where you get to only succeed in this tiny little domain.
Yeah,
And then you're nowhere. You can do
yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
But if you're comfortable failing, then you can do anything in the world.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love to end these conversations by putting people on the spot.
Let's do it.
And so I will do a very brief apology by putting you on the spot, but I want to ask you, what is one principle that you like to live your life by that you could share about how to raise powerful, compassionate men?
Uh, don't be a dick, right? Like, it's the hardest thing in the world to like be assertive, be strong, be powerful, be commanding, but just don't be a dick. Like being a dick, and what I mean by being a dick is like you cross over from assertive into dickishness when you start cutting people down.
Yeah.
When you start being disrespectful, when you start being rude, when you start like trying to humiliate people. Like I said, I coach kids every now and again. You gotta raise your voice at a kid, but you gotta follow it up with like dude, you're great at this. You're great at that. You just got to get better at this. You have to. You can't just tear a kid down and then walk away.
Right.
You can't do that because they
Yeah.
will hate you. I hold grudges to this day for people that I feel that did that to me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like there's family members I don't like. There's coaches I will never speak to again. You know what I mean? Like I pass them in the street, they go, "Hey, Sean, yeah, how you doing? How you doing, Doug?" You know what I mean? Like keep it pushing, because we're not friends. You said something that bugged me. It still bothers me to this day. You don't even remember it, but I do.
Yeah.
And so I just feel
I
like
when I was in second grade,
there you go.
um, I had been in private school my whole life,
Yeah,
kindergarten and first grade, right? Not
yeah.
much of a life, but I talked my parents into putting me in public school for second grade. I can't. I don't know why my parents would have listened to a second
That's
grader.
that's that's
Um,
a funny story in and of itself. To be a
it's
first
insane.
grader to talk your parents into sending you to public school.
It's insane. We lived in Hollywood, California. This was an inner city public school. I ended up leaving this school because one day my mom or so my I was out on the playground after school because my mom was working and she would come pick me up around 5 or 6 p.m. And we would
Yeah.
just be out in the schoolyard playing afterwards. No official after school program, anything like that. Just
Yep.
out in the schoolyard playing. And I was playing this stupid game with a buddy of mine who what and the game was we would go to the drinking fountain and fill up our mouths and then spit the water on each other. And and so I went over to the drinking fountain and was filling up my mouth and I heard my buddy sneaking up behind me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get him. I filled my mouth up with this giant mass of water and I wheeled around and spit it right into his face, but it wasn't him. It was a sixth grader.
Ooh.
And this sixth grader was about my size. I was a big second grader.
Yeah.
But behind him was another sixth grader who was about your size
Yeah.
today in my
Yeah.
memory.
Yeah.
He was, I don't know, man. This kid, in my memory, he weighed 355 pounds and
Yep.
was 9 feet tall. And I looked at this guy, and this guy goes, "You're dead." And I took off running. And I ran for a good 5 minutes, it felt like. And I was
Yeah.
running around. I looked back, and like the kid was falling behind. The sixth grader was falling behind. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And I look in front of me, and all I saw was chest. And it was the sixth grader, his friend, and he had cut me off. And I banged into him, and this guy wheeled me around. He held my arms behind my back. And the sixth grader, who was my size, the one I spit on, just started wailing on me and just beating the crap out of me. And it was like, and I remember thinking, oh, what time is it? It's only like 4:30. There's no way. My mom's not going to be here for an hour and a half. I'm screwed. And I hear from the other side of the playground, I hear this banshee wail. And my mom was screaming at the top of her lungs. She had come an hour and a half early to come pick me up somehow, magically. And she had her
Yeah.
heels in her hand, and she was running across the playground, and she was screaming at these kids, "What are you doing?" And she rescued me.
Yeah.
And that was the last day I spent in public school. But while I was at this public school, I started off in second grade, and within about a month, I was in third grade.
Yeah.
And about a month later, I was in third grade, but doing fourth grade reading, and I was just kind of
Yeah.
marching up. I was just like, I just got this stuff that they were teaching.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the teacher hated me, and I didn't know. And so one day, actually didn't even realize this until 20 years later, and I had to go to the bathroom. We needed permission to go to the bathroom. And so I raised my hand, and she didn't call on me. And I sat there with my hand up for about 15 minutes. And I had to pee so bad, man. And I felt this pressure, and just a tiny little bit of pee leaked out, and I caught it, and the feeling I had, the just this relief that I had from that pressure in the tiny little amount of pee that leaked out, it felt so good. And I looked down, and you couldn't even tell.
Yeah.
Oh man, maybe I can, maybe that's okay. Maybe my pants will absorb it, and it'll be all right. And I let a little bit more out, and then I ended up letting it all out. And then it came time for me to leave the third grade classroom and go over to the fourth grade classroom for the reading. And so I got up and I left. And I didn't know this, but there was a puddle of pee in my seat.
Yeah.
And so they came over. The teacher sent kids over to the fourth grade classroom to come and get me. And I had to go and get a bunch of towels and clean it all up in front of the whole class. And that teacher, she did it on purpose. She knew.
Yeah.
I was holding my hand in the air. She saw that. She just didn't call on me because maybe she thought I was going to say something. I don't know. I still to this day don't know.
Yeah. But you remember it.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it actually helped, like, it guided my life in a way. I became iconoclastic. I became anti-authority.
Yeah.
As a result of this, because I realized, this was evil what she did.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a little kid, a second grade, 8-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I to this day, it's been, 40 years.
See,
and
that,
it still affects me.
I think the power of that is incredible. And it just goes back to just, like I said, man, I feel like
Don't be a
I
dick.
know how much I can hold in and how much anger I can store in my body
Yeah.
and keep it for somebody. And so I just feel like, just don't be a dick, man, because you just is it just me, or is, like, I feel like nobody ever wants to be, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people do want to be. I don't know.
I think I think some people get their sense of empowerment from being
Yeah.
able to, it's like, I used to have this girlfriend back when I was single. I had this girlfriend who, it was almost like she got her sense of how much I loved her by how much she could ruin my life. Like, just how much pain she could inflict on me. And then she felt like, if she had a flat tire, I would come help her do it. And so she was constantly having emergencies that I had to rescue from and stuff like that. I think it's like that. I think some people get their sense of empowerment from how much they can affect someone else's mood or someone else's life. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. But you know what? That you should feel that way. You should feel a sense of empowerment of how much you can affect someone's life in a good way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why isn't that where you're getting your sense of empowerment? It's easy to.
Yeah.
I remember I went through this period where, when this was still kind of a thing, I would drive through the drive-through at McDonald's and I would pay for the person behind me, and I just realized that for something like $10,
Yeah.
I could make someone's day.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it, I wouldn't do it even every day, but once a week I would pay for the person behind me in line. And because I imagine, how would I feel if somebody paid for my stuff? And I don't know, maybe they'll pay it forward and it'll be this thing. And so that's what I did. I went, and I felt so freaking great after doing that. And I never even met anybody who I paid for.
Yeah. See, let me just say one more thing, is that I think that what you're saying and what we're both kind of getting at is, I think the power behind this show, this podcast, is when you ask the question, what makes someone a dick? What makes them, what wires them that way? I think the most obvious answer is probably they were raised by a dick.
Yeah.
They were raised by somebody that shit on them, that humiliated them.
That is such a powerful statement.
And then if that's all they know, it's like sometimes maybe that's all that person knows. That's how they show love, because that's what they think love is.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like we can break people by doing, when what you do to a child, they're probably going to do to someone else,
Yeah.
whatever that
Or what
is.
they
You show
witness you do to a third party.
exactly what they see you do, what they experience you doing is kind of who they're going to become. So that's why, yeah, I always like. I will. That is like a hard line for me. If I ever got a call that my kid was bullying somebody, picking on somebody, that would probably be the hardest conversation we would have. They would see a different side of me, and of course, I wouldn't bully them in return, but I would let them know like this is unacceptable. Like you cannot treat people wrong because life is too precious. Life is too precious. It's too short. It's too finite to spend your time trying to ruin somebody else's life.
Yeah.
To try to ruin somebody else's day when you got your own day to worry about, and it feels so much better to make someone's day. Be
And you
better
have the
than it
power
was.
to do that. You have the power to
And you
make
have
someone's day
we
just as
all
much as
do.
you have to destroy it.
Yeah. The shit that sounds cheesy when you're 25, it really makes all the sense in the world when you're in your 40s. It's just like making
Yeah.
somebody, I still to this day, man, I will hold, if I see, especially an older woman, right? She could be 40 feet behind me. If I'm opening a door, I look behind me and I see a woman, I'm going to hold that door. And the
I
smile
know.
that I
I
get,
have this calculus there because I also don't want that woman to feel like she has to rush in
I
order to
always say,
do
don't.
this thing that, yeah,
Every time I say, don't run. You know what I mean? Every time
yeah,
you got to
yeah.
say, don't
Take
run,
your
don't do
time.
that. Just take your
Yeah,
time.
but then you have to say it in such a way that makes it clear that you're not being ironic. I mean, that's, I think about this. I think about how far in front of somebody should I be in order to hold the door.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
funny.
You're a gentleman. That's a gentlemanly concern.
Yeah,
And it's I was raised I was taught that by my mom. I was taught that to
I was too.
like she did a good job of teaching me like what she would accept, and then that's what I do for other, that's what I do for people is I treat them how I treat my mom. And my mom's pretty crazy, so it's like you got to treat her good. Otherwise, you're in trouble. So, yeah, unless you want
That's
to have a
that's
conflict,
great.
you
Your
better
mom
treat
and
her
my
good.
mom would have gotten along, I think.
Oh
That's
yeah, she say the same thing. If she would have saw some kids wailing on me, it would have been a bad day for them. It would have been a
yeah,
very bad day
it
for them.
was. It was great. Yeah, she was great. I wish she was still with me. We lost her when I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
21, which is so early.
yeah. Very early.
Man, there's nothing I wouldn't give it for her to be able to meet my kids. I would. You're so fortunate you have that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, and that's
Yeah, well,
like
it's the fact is she was amazing.
yeah,
She gave us the best life.
yeah,
And
yeah,
she was taken from us too soon, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
yeah, yeah,
I was glad to have had her for the amount of time I had her. She was
yeah.
really, really, really spectacular. And that's a beautiful place for us to end. My guest today has been Shaun Harvey. He's the co-host of The Kids Are Asleep, and he joins us from Portland, Oregon. Thanks so much, Shaun.
Thank you for having me.
Raising Men is produced by Fiel Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph Tolentino.